not just sa tech world, but as well as to our curriculum kay web dev and like working on projects is really essential sa tuang curriculum. And most likely, I don't know, mostly mo take part na siya on the second semester. Okay, so welcome to Orbiting the Web, Foundations of Web Development. So in this workshop, we'll be tackling the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So with this, no, we're gonna be discussing the essentials. Of course, not everything kay the world of web development is very vast. We'll be tackling unsa tong what really matters, especially sa atong curriculum, right? So with that, one way to really learn Jude, from experience is through doing, not just by listening. So along mag-discuss si Dustin, our web dev officer, mag-create ta og website, okay? So each and every single one of us natay individual output, more inputs or information regarding this later on. So since unfortunately ni-switch na ta to online modality. Sayang na kayo kay we got lots of plans on that sa face to face, we got snacks, everything. Sayang. So kato ang funds ato we'll just put it na lang sa next nga event. Okay, so what we'll be doing, no? As I've said kaganya, we'll be creating a output. So not the expected output na ni along. Of course, as I've said ganyan, more information regarding that later. Si Dustin na inform ana. Okay. So here's itong approach instead. Since Google Meet no is really like online in general is really kind of like a bit wonky compared to having it face to face. So what we came up with or like what we will do today kay every before major components or like major sections before let's say before CSS, before JavaScript, we'll have time para magbuhat sa to ang activity. Okay? So we'll be split into break rooms where let's say group mo into a certain number of people depende kung pila ta karon. And yeah, you're encouraged to share your screen, to open your camera, work on your project, talk to people, etc., etc. Just to sort of like patch the the thing na we lost face to face nga natay kauban. So yes, we should be everything na regarding the um regarding our activity. So so I'll pass na the mic to our web dev officer to formally start our workshop. Whee!
Hello, may audible ra?
Sir, you are
I'll change that the kan para sa output. Okay, it's good na. Okay, so hello everyone once again. Welcome to the first event of kan GDG, which is Orbiting the Web, Foundations of Web Dev. So as mentioned, you're gonna be learning about the basics of web development. It's not gonna turn you into a god immediately of web dev, because it's a vast world, as Jian said. But it is the starting point para it will turn you into gods of dev. You can make anything you want. So first, foremost, what is web development? So web development is a branch in computer studies where they mainly focused on developing web applications, websites, and web pages. So what you see when you go to websites online, those are the jobs of devs. Uh, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. But the thing is, the thing about web dev is it combines creativity in a way, just like with front end, and as well as problem solving as well, which is like pretty common in back end. So first, let's tackle the two types in web development. So there's front end development and back end development. Front end development is essentially like what you see when you open the website. It's the text, it's the design, it's the layout, everything about that. Meanwhile, back end is essentially what's running on the background of it. So, for example, if you are logging in into Facebook, then the back end essentially like checks for everything. Like it checks your email if it's correct, checks your password, it checks if you are authenticated to log in, if your account exists, stuff like that. Basically, it does the calculations and the brain of the website. But for today, we will be focusing on front end, mainly the three most common tools and languages used, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So, a quick reminder to if you really want to pursue web development, the developer must bring out the perfect balance of usability and app functionality. So, essentially, what this means is your website has to be very usable to the users while having like the back end being very functional, like it does the thing that it needs to do. So, let's start off with our first tool, HTML, also known as Hypertext Markup Language, which is like said here, the backbone of web development. So, what is HTML? HTML, like I said, is the backbone of web development. It essentially tells the browser of what elements are there. Like if there are images, if there are text, if there are yeah, those in general. So it is done through HTML that you can add those stuff into your website through the help of tags. Now, uh, I'll go on here. So this is what the HTML looks like here. So in order to create a new file, I'm assuming you guys have VS Code na. So yeah. So if you have VS Code, uh, just try to code along with us. But if you don't, then fun. I suggest you to install right now. I don't think I think you can catch up pretty quickly with it. So yeah, I'll give you time lang siguro to kuan to install VS Code. Is that okay, Homer, Gian?
I'll provide the link. I'll provide the link lang, but as Dustin said, it's very easy to install, so you can just catch up as he is discussing in the background. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll continue na lang. Okay. So I'll kuan. Okay, my bad. So to create an HTML file, you have your kuan here, diba? This is your workspace in VS Code. You click on new file and then for example, you name it whatever you like. For example, home.html. So the .html essentially tells you that this is an HTML file. I think we all know that. So yeah. Now, you may notice I have here index.html. So why index.html in general or specifically why? So when you host your websites, like for example, you host it in Vercel, you host it on GitHub, or even in our Disayas MCon, and as well as for most web servers like shown here, like Apache, Nginx, or Node.js, uh, they will essentially find the file type named index.html because that's the default name for them. So if you want your website to display immediately, then just use index.html. Otherwise, if you won't, because then you will need to adjust the link to set the to set the kuan, to set the what do you call it, the location to be to the one that you have. Like for example, home.html, then you need to put home.html into the website. in order to find. So, so structure with so since we already have our HTML file, let's move on to structure. An HTML file has the structure. There's a basic structure. It starts with this one, the what do you call this? Exclamation doc type HTML. What this essentially tells you is that it is it tells the website that this is an HTML file. Yeah, that's it. And then the HTML tag, it, which tells you that this part is the HTML. Then the head part, it's not really that gone for now, but the head part essentially where is where you put the metadata, the title, and the description. So essentially, it's like a place if other developers come into your code, then they can just refer to those. And the body contains all the codes that you will put, the HTML codes that you will put, all the elements, all the stuff. So this is what a regular HTML structure looks like. So as you can see here, doc type HTML. HTML lang equals en, which means that the language that will be used is English. So, and then we have the head tag here, which shows the metadata, the car set, name, content, and stuff like that. You don't really need to go further into these metadata. It essentially just tells your browser on more information about what you're doing, or yeah, about the tools you're using. Then title, this part you can edit it so that your website will have the title that you want. Then as you can see, it's enclosed in the header tag, and then this one is enclosed in the HTML tag. Then the body, like I said, is where you will put your code. So to show you a demonstration, so there's a trick in VS Code you can do. At if you press the exclamation and then you click on this first option, it will create the basic structure for you. So you don't have to type it every time you want to create a new um, H- HTML file. You can do that easily. Okay, so now let's move on to the elements and concepts of HTML. First is the heading. So I think we're all pretty familiar naman of heading. It's synonymous with the word like title or stuff like that. But yeah, essentially, heading tags are what's used to declare titles and in a website. So it goes from H1 to H6. H1 is essentially the title. So it's the largest font, has the largest default font size, which goes little, which decrements in size as it goes on. So H2 will have smaller one, H3 will be even smaller until H6. So just to show a demonstration here. So if I type in H1 here, then hello world, it will show in the website hello world. That's essentially the header one. If I type in header 2, there, you can see that it's a little smaller compared to the H1. And if you really want to see, here, there, we can see that H1 is the largest one, and then H6 is the smallest one of them all. So it decrements by size depending on how far it is. There is no H7, by the way. H6 is the very last one of that one. Okay. Now to paragraphs. Again, it's pretty self-explanatory. I think you know what a paragraph is, but the paragraph tag is what's used commonly for paragraphs. Yeah, for paragraphs. So for text that has more content than the title, then use the paragraph one. So here. Okay, there. So this will turn into a paragraph na. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Also, if you guys want to have like a mock-up of your website beforehand, like you don't want the actual content for now, you just want a mock-up, I can suggest you to do a paragraph tag here, and then you type in lorem, and it will give you a lorem ipsum tag that will uh, essentially act as a temporary one. If you don't want to put the content beforehand, it's good for like layouting stuff if you don't have the content at the time. Okay. To move on, line break. Um, I think this is a very familiar concept in Prog 1 \n. Essentially just forces the a text or any other element to have a line break. So if you want to lay out it differently, then you can use line break. So for example, I have an h1 tag here that says hello world. It is. If I put br in the middle of them, you can see that world will be now under hello. So yeah, that's essentially how line break works. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I need to delve much deeper into this. Horizontal rule. Now, this is something not familiar to you. Horizontal rule, but it's a pretty simple concept, trust me. So, horizontal rule is essentially just creates a line throughout your document so that, yeah, it creates a line. So, the thing about this is it's used for um, separating content from of pages. Like, for example, for the top, you have the about us. Then for the bottom, because you have like the contact details. Then you can use HR to put like a border across that. So here, for example, I want to separate this um, paragraph from this. I can essentially just do an HR tag, and as you can see here, there is a line that goes throughout the document. So it's commonly used for um, yeah, separating, but in most cases, it's not really used that much. But if you find it useful, then you can definitely use this. A strong. The strong tag puts emphasis on a specific part of the text. So it essentially bolds the text in HTML style to put emphasis on it. It's pretty self-explanatory again. For example, here, I type in strong in between hello. It's already bold, I think. But yeah, okay, I'll put it in lorem na lang. But yeah, here. Uh, it will bold out the text without bolding the other text here. But of course, you can also bold out more if you want. For example, like this, then these parts of the text will be bolded out and the rest will just be as normal. Now, next is EM or emphasize. It it's the same with strong. It has the same properties with strong, but instead of bolding the text that you want, it italizes them so that it'll, yeah, italizes them. So see here. Let's say for these text, I want to italize them, and then there. It essentially just italizes them in the HTML way. You can do this with CSS later, but this is one way to do it if you guys want to go this route. So anchor tag. This is very used in websites because an anchor tag essentially lets you create a link to, let's say, another website or another page that you have. So yeah, essentially creates a clickable link that can be used. So for example here, let's get a link to youtube.com. Let's say I want to create an A tag. You can put a text inside your A tag so that it will have like an outline. So for example, this link to YouTube. So yeah, as you can see for now, it is not clickable, but it is there, but it's not yet clickable. Now, the reason that is because you need one, you need one attribute that you can put onto this. So these are the attributes of a anchor tag. So first is we have href. Um, href stands for I think I forgot what H stands for, but ref stands for reference. So essentially, it refers you to whatever you put as its quote unquote argument. So let's say, for example, here. So in order to apply these attributes, you go to, let me try to zoom in. You go inside the tag, space. So common practice is space, and then href here. So this tag essentially is the href tag attribute rather. And then inside the double quotes, you can put the link that whatever to whatever you want. Let's say here, youtube.com. And as you can see, it is now in fun. It changed its color to blue with an underline. This essentially tells you that this is now a clickable link. So if I click this, then it will lead to youtube.com. Okay. Now, another one is target. So you don't want your users that if they click on the website, is it will change the actual your current web page most of the time. Like let's say you're linking to a YouTube, you don't want to change your current web page. You just want to put them in a new tag. That's where target comes in. So target, I'll explain two arguments that can be put in target. Underscore self and underscore blank. Underscore self is the default, where if you click on it, then it will change your current web page into the link that you put in the href. Underscore blank, on the other hand, creates a new tag and then opens the link that you are using to that new tag. So, okay, I'm gonna show you. So, it's the same. You put them inside the tag. You just put target equals. Well, as you can see here, there's 4 arguments, but for now, I think you only need these two, self and blank. Now, if you put blank here, if we click on this website, it should open to the new page. There you go. So yeah, that's how most websites would do it. A list. So a list is a it's a it's an English term. I think you already know what a list is. It's essentially just elements, structured elements. So a list in HTML is a list that you can put down as many elements as you want. Um, this is a parent container, so it is not. You cannot put just argument. You can just put words in it because there are other elements that you have to put, which is on in the next one. So first type of list is unordered. So an unordered list essentially is from the word itself unordered. So it doesn't have like an logical ranking, doesn't have a sequential ranking to whatever you put there. And the way it is designed is it will have bullet points instead of numerical. I'll show you. So here, I put an li tag here. Right? So now, as I mentioned, li or a list is a parent div. So I can put here an ul. Now, let's see here. I'll put in grocery. Then, ay, oh, my bad. Sorry, I got it mixed up. It's ul and then li. There we go. Sorry, my bad, guys. I got it mixed up. So the ul is the parent tag and the li is the element that you put inside. So if we add more, helping. So here, you can see here na it is forming a list of one. Is forming a list with bullet points. So that's because, like I said, it is unordered. So it is gone. It does not have a cohesive or sequential ranking to it. On the other hand, we have ordered list, which from the word itself is ordered. So it will have a sequential list of the things that you put inside there. It essentially is the same as UL or an ordered list, but instead of bullet points, it will have numbers inside them. So let's say, for example, OL. It's still the same. You still put LI inside, but instead of bullets, then you will have numbers instead. So it is numerical, it has a sequential ranking to however you want to put it. Next is image. Now, from the word itself, image is, yeah, an image. So it is used to embed images into a website. And yeah, that's essentially what it is. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So I think I forgot to add here, but image will have an href attribute wherein you what do you call this? You pass in the as an argument the link to that image or the directory of that image. So let's see here. For example, if we go here and find a picture of a dog. So this is the one here. So if we put in img, why is it not loading? Oh, is it because it's not gone? Oops. There we go. That should be it. Right? Or wait, I think I got it mixed up again. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, my bad, guys. I have it there here. It is not href. Again, I'm sorry. It's still early in the morning. It is SRC, which stands for, I think you can guess it, source. What? Okay. So these are the two major attributes of an image tag, SRC and alt. So yeah, SRC essentially tells you that this is the source of the website, of the image rather. So as you can see here in our website, the picture is here. So with the help of the SRC tag, it is able to find that it is there. But if you want it to be gone, so let's rename this dog and let's remove this. So if you put SRC and then the name of the image file that you have, you can see it here, right? So if you just press that, then it is still there because SRC not only works for websites, but it can also detect files within the folder, within a subfolder, or within the previous folder. And then the alt. The alt attribute essentially adds a what you call it? It essentially adds a alternative text to your image. This is this is used for like example, your internet is slow and it can't load the image. So instead of um, just a blank area, it will show you like the alternative text that the developer has put there. Like for example, they have a picture of a dog and they put alt equals dog. Then it will show up. It will show the words dog instead of having it empty. And this is also very useful for, uh, like I mentioned, usability, because for screen readers, it will be detected, so it will be easier for those who are gone. So it is easier for those who are like visually impaired to access your website, and they still know what you have there. So again, same with SRC, alt equals, and you can put whatever you want here. So you can put dog here, and then there you go. It will show up like this if it won't load, or yeah, if you have the wrong one, if you have the wrong file type link, it will show up like this. But essentially, this is what alt does. Division. I think if you've seen programming memes, I think you know about divs. So yeah, divs are called division. So what a division does is essentially it encloses a specific block of code. Yeah, it encloses a specific block of code to be part of that specific section. So this is it's essentially used for sectioning different parts of the web pages so that it is easier to control all of them. Like if you want to change the properties of one, then it'll automatically like adjust depending on how well you did your divs. So for the div, there's not really, you can't really visually see it that well. So if you type in div, it will show this one. Then you can put whatever block of code, HTML code you want to have here. So let's say I want to have an H1 this title. Yeah. So now these two are well, you can see that they're still in like the normal flow of the website, but these two are enclosed in divs. So how is this useful? So for CSS, right, um, this will be used to manipulate these two without affecting the others. So, or uh, wording it differently, it is used to manipulate these two without needing to manipulate each one of them. So let's say, for example, I want to, in CSS, I want to move this farther below. I don't have to put this and then this below. I can just use the div and then it will just do it on the div instead of the uh, these two elements. So yeah, that's essentially what a div is. It essentially just encloses your codes into block, so that it'll be easier for you to modularize, and it will be easier for you to manipulate them. This div is very useful. This is why Gian mentioned to me that this should be discussed, because this is very useful, especially for your CSS later, which will be discussed later, and essentially for your making of websites in the near future. Span. So the span acts a like a div, but instead of the blocks of code that it will be spanning, it spans uh, an entire text essentially. So it has the same properties as the strong and the em. Like for example here, span and then paragraph here. So yeah, again, there's no clear changes indication here, but what this allows you to do is, let's say you want in your CSS later, you want to change this specific part of the text to be a different color. Let's say you want this to be red. Then if you put it in your p tag, then the other word, which is here, would also be affected. So what essentially span does is, if you want to change as only a specific text, then you can put it inside there. So so let's say you want to change this one, you want to increase the font size, anything that you want, this will be changed and this won't, as long as you just put the attributes inside the span tag. So it essentially acts like a div, but it is used for most commonly used for text and yeah, text manipulation. Now, universal attributes. I just call them universal attributes for the theme, but okay. In HTML, there are two universal attributes that you can put: the class and the ID. What a class is essentially like, okay, a class is a group of students, right? So in HTML, a class is a group of elements. So you can assign a specific class name to a group of multiple HTML elements. So whenever you want to, let's say you want to manipulate them later, you want to change them something, then those under the same class will be changed all at the same time, so that you won't have to change them one by one. So okay, here, let's say for this li, this one is class unordered. So this is only one class. So if I change something in the unordered class, only this will change. But if I put this also in the other elements, then these three essentially will have the same property to whatever I will change it later on. So let's say if I want to increase the font size of this one, then it won't only affect this one, but it will affect all three of them at the same time. Whereas for ID, ID is, well, unique. So it's used for identification, right? So it's the same with a real life ID. It is supposed to be unique, and it's supposed to be only singular. So if you want to change, let's say you want to change the header one into something specific, or you want to, yeah, if you want to change it to something specific, then I'd prefer you to use ID instead of using class, because for it's a common practice. If you are um, if you are manipulating only one, then just use ID instead of class. Plus, it'll be, you'll understand later in CSS and JavaScript why that is the case. But yeah, essentially, if you only need to manipulate one, then just use ID. But if you want a specific group of uh, elements, then use class. Also, quick note for class, it's not only limited to the same thing. Like, I can put class in H6 and it will follow the same properties that I put within this class. Okay, and I think that's it for HTML. So it's time for the short activity. Gian, Homer. Hello.
Okay. Lolo, I think Ian is like point of view.
Ooh,
Last
okay.
mission.
Hi. Okay.
Ian, would you like to explain
Yeah,
along
sige.
this one?
I'll make this really
Sige.
quick lang kay I got a wait lang, sorry about that. I got a class in like ano, like right now. Sige. Wait lang, permission to ano, present my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so on the activity run is we're going to create a website. So this will be our very first website. And to just give you an idea kung what this will be, of course, usually ang first website yun na to is going to be a portfolio, di ba? So I have here a list of websites, portfolios of mga really cool people, really in web development. So these guys are mga seniors na to sa tong department. Okay? So let's go with with Kuya Samuel's portfolio. So if, di ba, it's really cool. So learning web development karon kay of course this is only the beginning. Ini kay this takes if not months, years of kanang practice and para maka-learn mo regarding the um appropriate technologies to create something like this. So of course, everything needs to start somewhere. So let's start by creating our very own first website, which is going to be a portfolio. So, as I have previously mentioned kaganiha, that we will be segregated to breakout rooms where saan more information regarding how to approach creating your own websites and imong i-apply kung unsa tong gisto rin ni Dustin ganiha. Okay, does that sound good ba? Alright, sige, sige. Sige, basta na kay gusto i-add pa, Homer.
Let's lang, have a quick vibe check siguro.
Sige.
Can I have a reaction, guys? Can I guess as to what we'll do? People. Oh, Chris is here. Mga familiar names. So, again, we will be distributing you guys to breakout rooms. It's breakout rooms. So, we have officers here that are assisting us for this morning. So, the, the the mechanics are simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be as, we're not here to become gods in just one tutorial. So yeah, just if you have any questions, it's more like a consultation period slash show us what you've done so far. Like, have you had experience with HTML, or if you've been coding along, then share with share what you have done so far. Like, even if it's as simple as putting your name in a blank HTML file, or butang mo ng HR, like a separating line or whatnot. Anything works. So we will be allotting around 10 minutes for that. And then we're gonna go back here some main call after the timer's finished. And then we'll continue on with the CSS. Okay, so guys, heart reactions, please. Celebration reactions, anything. Okay, so yeah, I will now be distributing everybody. So 10:03. So around. Oh no. Sige, sige, Jen. Thank you so much. So to breakout in 3. All right. I will open rooms and a notification should appear right now. Okay.
Hello guys. So ako ang officer assigned para ma-facilitate ani na group. Do you guys have any questions or like yeah kana any like questions about the instructions?
So gani ang buhaton gani. Sorry for wala kay ko naminaw.
Kuan ra maghimo ra mo og, simple HTML page na as like introductions and portfolio. Like yeah, portfolio ra nimo basically. Mo talk about yourself ra. Yeah, it's purely HTML lang sa karon.
Do each of us need to one day? Okay.
Yes. If you guys could screen share, that'd be nice, sad, para makita kasi ng progress. Pero
Okay.
if di pa mo ganahan, okay ra, sad. Sige na lang.
Sige, sige, sige.
Nagsugod na ba mo? Or wala pa? Naka-get mo sa instructions, ha? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, gets it. Hinahinay
Nice.
ko.
Sige, sige lang.
I mean, if I were to be honest, wala akong nagbihok ani. Karon lang. Uh, yeah. Nakagets mo.
I think so, pero I'll chat niya to clarify lang sad. Nice mo.
Wanto ko niya. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, feel free lang dyan to chat. Willing kami mo help sad. Ah, dahil si Ethan daw, guys. Willing makanta ninyo. Okay. Okay, ano ninyo mag-music ta, guys? Or sabaan mo? Hindi na mo focus sa inyong kuan.
Okay naman, okay naman. I'm good with that.
Okay, sige. Pa-music na. Hi, Gian.
Wow, hi. Wala ko nagsugod ang class. Oh, okay. Never mind, sugod na guy. Okay, I got
Yeah.
ang fun. Mo adto na si Homer diron, ga breakout room hopping siya.
Ah, okay, sige.
Sige. Thank you. Have fun.
Thank you. Ay, hala, sure, eh. What's up? Kana madonggan yun na, guys. Yaak lang if yes. Mag-code sad da. Da, join Titan, tada. Code sad da. Na. Sige daw. murag di pwede tan mahunong akong screen share sa music. So dapat murag ikaw jud. Mahunong akong screen share sa music. So dapat murag ikaw jud dapat mag-code. Balik na ta sa main call guys. In a bit. Good sila guys. Nice.
Okay, it seems like Homer has been disconnected. So, okay, welcome back, guys. So, I hope you had some progress now on your website and your portfolio. Oh, come back, Homer.
Hi, what did I miss? So, yeah, hopefully, guys, everybody is, if not on the same page, at least has an idea. Okay, just sharing what I said to the breakout rooms that I went to is that pag abot niyo Web Dev 1, even if you already had experience, or let's say you're already a god in HTML and CSS, you're going to start from scratch. So, what we're literally doing right now, no, is what we were assigned to do as our first seat work during our Web Dev 1. Like, okay, guys, here are the HTML elements, nag-discuss sila, and then make a portfolio, like basic information. So, as I would like to reiterate now on behalf of Gianna, later we will be choosing like three to five among you to share your screen and at least show something. It doesn't have to be the portfolio. It can be anything you've done before, or if you've been coding along, anything as simple as your name, your age, your email, or whatever, a picture of you on a blank website, and we'll design that. Don't worry, as we cover CSS, we will be selecting 3 to 5 or like by volunteer, guys, and then there will be incentives. If you've heard of data camp, some people are asking me about data camp. We're gonna be the people who will are courageous enough to share what they've learned and show their work. I will be granting them data camp access, and that is usually paid. So, yeah, guys. So, that being said, I think we can now proceed with CSS. I-share mo na yung CSS, guys. Legit. Go ahead, Dustin. Dustin.
Yes, let me share my screen. Okay, so now that we're done with HTML, so like as mentioned, HTML is the backbone um, of websites. But as you can see here, it's kind of ugly. Like it's just very plain. So that's what CSS is for. So what does CSS mean? Cascading style sheets. So what is CSS? So like I mentioned, it's used to beautify your websites. So it essentially connects to your HTML, and then you can edit those HTML to however you want them to be. So yeah, as mentioned, while HTML provides the structure, like the text, the images and stuff, CSS will handle the design, the layouting, stuff like that. Anything that you can imagine, you can do it with CSS. So there are three ways to implement CSS. So first is we have inline CSS. So what inline CSS essentially does is you put the CSS properties or code inside the what do you call it, inside the element or the tag. So it essentially acts like an attribute to the to that specific tag. So and the attribute is style. So okay, for example here, I want to change this one. So I can just put style equals rank. So this um this line here essentially would allow you to change the properties of this specific text with just inputting an example. Then there you go. So that's one way to do it. Uh, it's often really not used. Sometimes used if you it, I use it whenever I dynamically make HTML with what you call it, with uh, JavaScript sometimes, but I usually don't use it. Next is internal. So internal is essentially you're putting your CSS code inside your let's say your inside your HTML HTML file. So it acts like your HTML file will be both your HTML and CSS. So how to do this is pretty simple. So after the heading and before the body, you put style and it will encode itself, right? So now essentially this area here is your CSS area. So you can input whatever CSS you want here. Say body, background, color, green. Then it essentially just turns it essentially just puts CSS into your HTML while being in the HTML file. Uh, Again, it's useful, but I don't I don't really use it that much because it seems like not really that worth, because the last one is external. Now, external outside. So meaning you're having your CSS outside your CSS, your HTML file rather. So why is this the most preferred one? So essentially, this allows you to modularize your codes and your files better. So, and also for reusability purposes, because you're not just putting it into one HTML file, you can link multiple HTML files into that one specific CSS and then just use that CSS. So you won't have a clutter of files, a clutter of CSS. But what also helps here is that you can essentially make your file directory much cleaner with external CSS. So how do we do that? So my bad. In order to link your CSS to your HTML, this line of code in the header tag is used. Link rel, which means relationship, style sheet. So its relationship is style sheet. And then the href tag is style.css. So this is this file name is the reference is referenced by your HTML. So here link rel equals style sheet href equals style.css. Okay. Oh yeah. To make a CSS file, it's essentially the same like this one. So let's say home, then .css file, and then it should just create your CSS file. But for this tutorial, I'll be using style.css. So now, with this, your CSS is now essentially linked to your HTML, and you can put your CSS file here, which we will do later. So one main thing about CSS is selectors. What is selectors? So selectors are important in CSS as it essentially is the communication between HTML and CSS. Now, in selectors, there are three main symbols used: the dot, the hash, or the sharp, and asterisk. So the dot essentially is fetching or selecting in a better term, selecting all classes within the HTML. So in our example here, we have the class name unordered, right? So if we want to access these elements with class unordered, essentially have to do dot unordered. Unordered. And then there. So now, whatever CSS codes I put here, it will essentially link back to these elements, and then essentially from there I can just change them. So yeah, I'll show you later. Next is the hash, which is used for ID. So if you want to fetch an ID or select an ID, then hash is used. Like for example, which was the ID title. So I do hash title like that. Oh, and quick reminder that CSS uses curly braces in order to put a block of code in it. So yeah, but yeah, essentially those are what sectors. For asterisk, it essentially means all. So if we, if I, usually it's used like this, asterisk and then curly braces, meaning whatever code, CSS code or CSS tags or no, yeah, CSS code I put here, it will affect everything around, everything in this HTML page. So yeah, that's useful if, however you want, but yeah, it has some use cases, but normally you just use dot or hash by selecting functions. Now, there's also type selectors in uh, CSS. So what are type selectors? Essentially, you pass on a HTML tag, not really pass on, but like you use an HTML tag instead of the hash name or dot name, stuff like that. So what essentially it does is it changes everything that has that specific type of element. Like let's say for example, I put h1 here. So what this essentially does is every h1 within this document will be affected. So whatever I put here, then it will apply to all h1 elements. So this one, and then this one. Which I will show later. So on to the first property of CSS, which is color. So color is used to change the text color of a specific uh, element. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So let's say uh, the title. I want to change the color. Okay, let's remove this first. Let's say I want to change the title to the title's color. So, color blue. Now it's blue. So yeah, that's essentially what it does. So the color can accept a lot of properties. It can accept colors, like the color itself, for example, white, gray, stuff like that. But it can also accept the hex value of a color. Let's say hash FFF. Let's see. I forgot what the hex color black is, but yeah, essentially you can pass on either the name of the color or the hex value of that color, which you can find online a lot of. Next is background color. So from the word itself, it changes the background of your website, or this is where the div comes in. It can change the color of the background color of your div. So this is where div will shine the most. Let's say for example, this is id equals div division. Then if I put hash division here and I type in background color red, then essentially the div will have the red background. So yeah, this is one of the cases where the div can shine in, because as you can see, everywhere else is still white except for the div. So this is pretty useful uh, for separating. So yeah, this is where one of the cases where divs shine. So yeah, but essentially you can also apply the background color to anything. Let's say for example, body. Oh, and body is used to select all the documents, the body of the, essentially the body of the what you call it, the website. For example, say background color, yeah, and then color white. So as you can see here, it changed the background of the entire website into black and changed the font color of every single element to white. So yeah, that's how you use the body tag. So yeah, back to the topic, background color, pretty self-explanatory. Essentially changes the background color of the wherever you put it. Next is background image. Now, the background image, like I said, it's the same. It's the same. Essentially, you can use an image as your background of the website. So to do this background image, and then you use the URL function in order to do this. So URL, and then put it in double quotes, and then within the double quotes you can put the link of the image. Let's say, for example, let me remove this here. Dog.webp. Oh, there we go. Now the background of our document or of our website is now the image of the dog. So yeah, that's essentially what it does. So aside from background color, you can use an image. You just have to use background image, then use the URL function, and then pass on the source, the location of your uh, image. Oh, and for background color rather, I forgot, it has the same properties as the color, where you can pass in a color or the hex. And essentially anything with color, you can either pass on the name of the color or the hex value of it. So next is font family. Font family is just another term for font style. So yeah, it's used to change the font style of the entire website. So you can either choose one or choose all. Let's say, for example, if I only want to change the font family of this one, I go font family. Now, as you can see here, there's a lot of arguments, but essentially, I think I'll just give it up to you what you call it, to explore on these, as there are a lot and it will take time. So personally, I like Tahoma. So let's say there. So now the font style, or in CSS terms, the font family of this specific um, element is now in the font that I set. You can also set it in your body. Like that one. And now all elements within the website will now have this specific font. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of font families out there. So I'll just give it up to you to discover. There are resources online which can show you what those are. So feel free to discover them yourselves. Next is font size. This is pretty self-explanatory, but font size is, yeah, changes the font size of the text essentially. So let's say I want to change the font size of this one. Okay. So I just call in the font size. Then you can do any numeric and then the unit itself. Let's say 90 pixels. Then it will change it into a slightly bigger text. Now, in terms of units, there are a lot of units out there. You can find all of them in the website in many resources, and there are a lot. But the one most commonly used are pixels, EMs, REMs, or REMs, you can call them, or percentages. So I don't think I'll go into much detail about them, but I think I'll leave it up to you guys to like discover these, but essentially these four are most commonly used. I personally use rem a lot, but of course it's also up to personal preference to whatever you want to use. Font weight. So font weight is essentially tells you how the thickness of the text that you want. So you can set it to the thickest or you can set it to the thinnest. So it has four values that you can pass on: normal, bold, lighter, or numeric values, which is from 1 to 900. So let's see. Let's see. I want to do font weight bold. I think it's already bold. My bad. Okay. Oh yeah, bold, lighter. Then there, you can see that now is lighter than the normal. Is there a question? Oh, never mind. Okay. Okay, yeah. So it's now lighter than usual, but you can also set it to. So for each one, I think the default is bold, but yeah. So bold is essentially strong, but for CSS essentially. So if you don't want to use strong, you can use bold to bolden the to bolden your text. You can also set the values. Okay, 100, then 200, 300, and then so on and so forth until 900, which is, like I said, the normal for headers. Okay, so I think you guys get this, but it's used to get to adjust the thickness of the text. Text align. So text align is essentially it it tells the text to if it wants to align from the left to the right to the center or justify. I think this is a thing in Word that you use. Essentially, if you want to have the text go from left to right, right to left, be centered, or have an equal distance. So let's say, for example, this paragraph. I will put a, where's the paragraph? I'll put an ID of the para. Hash para. Now, so by default, it is justify text align left. So since as you can see, it's from left to right and then goes from left to right again. If I do text align right, then it will shift from right to left. Not that text, but the orientation will change from right to left. Then if I do center, what does that mean? Center, then it will center itself. Then if I do justify, then it will have a justify. It will have a equal distance from itself. So yeah, that's essentially what text align is. I think this is a pretty common, no, this is a familiar concept because it is in Word, it is in Canva, it is in all the text editors, essentially. Okay. Next is margin. Now, in CSS, margin defines how far an element wants it to be outside from its surrounding elements. So I don't know how to find this, but I think I'll draw it. So let's say you have a div element here, right? So what margin essentially does is it sets a distance between these. So it goes from the element outside. So essentially it creates a distance from itself to the other elements. And there are four types of margins. So we have margin top, margin bottom, margin left, margin right. So from the word itself, right, it's pretty self-explanatory. Margin top creates a distance from itself to the top. So essentially distances itself from the top. From the bottom, it distances itself from the bottom, left, right. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So let's see here. Let's say I want to have a margin from this div here. Let's say margin top. Let's say if I set this to 20 pixels, then, oh, I think it's 1 or say 50. Then as you can see, it shifted away. It's creating a distance from the other div that's on the top, which is this one. So I do 100, then it's getting farther and farther. Now, if I do left, then it's creating a distance from here to the left. If I do right, it's creating a right. Then from the bottom, I can't really see it, but it's great. But yeah, there's a distance between here. If I just set margin, then it will create distance to all four. So here. So now it's essentially a smaller box because it creates a distance from here, 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 from all fours. Okay. Now, the opposite of margin is padding. So, like I mentioned, with margin, it creates a distance from itself outside of the element. But with padding, it creates a distance inside the element. So let's say, for example, here, in the same box. So if margin goes there, okay, the the padding goes inside. So it creates a space. It creates a space from itself from the inside, not from the outside. So let's say here, if I do padding and say 20 pixels, and as you can see, it created itself 20 pixels of space from each side of the div. So it creates a 20 pixel space here, 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 and then here. And of course, the same with margin, padding also has padding top, padding bottom, padding left, and then padding right. So do padding top, then it creates a distance from the top, bottom, creates a distance from the bottom, left, right. Yeah. So I think you get the main idea. But yeah, it creates a distance from itself. Quite the opposite of margin. Now, for border, I won't go much into details about it because there are a lot of things to discuss about borders. But essentially, with border is you can create a border outside the element or outside of the more specific, more occasionally used division. So yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory what a border is. So let's say, for example, border. So in order to use border, you can do border style, and then there, as you can see, there is a lot of properties that you can pass on the border. So the most commonly one used is solid. Here's this one. So now, as you can see, it creates a black outline from itself. So essentially what the border does is it accesses the outside of that division or outside of that element. So now there's one border property that is pretty commonly used, which is border radius. So border radius essentially changes the sharpness of the edges in the div. So let's say, for example, 20 px. Then as you can see, it's not a more sharp edge, but a more rounded edge now, which is what's most commonly seen in websites, because typically sharp edges don't really look that good, and essentially they just use border radius to round the borders. You can set it here, You can set it to how much value you want. You can also set it to 50%, which is I think a circle. Yeah, so you can set it into a circle. Okay, but yeah, I won't go much into border. I think I'll leave it up to you to discover, but because there are a lot of borders. So yeah, with so I think with you already guys already know this. With essentially tells you how wide a specific element is. So yeah, like for example, this one. Let's say I want the width to be 40%. Then it shrinks down. It changes itself to be only 40% of the icon. But the same with font size. You can pass on different uh, units. So RAM, EM, pixels percent. But with width is there's also a thing called view width, which I won't go further much into details about it, but essentially this is what's used most commonly used for widths, as it can help in the responsiveness of your website. But yeah, I'll leave it up to you guys to discover more on that. Height, essentially the same. I think you already know this. Height also tells you what uh, the height of the element or height of the thing is. Say 40%, then 50%. That's too small. Yeah, okay. Why is it not working? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, it's the same method with where you can pass in the four one. You can pass in the four what you call it units that I mentioned, but there's also a instead of view width, then there's also view height. So there it is. So yeah. So the view height essentially same as with view width, but vertically. Yeah, I'll leave it up to you guys again to discover if you want to use that one. So display types. So the display types determines whether how you want the elements to be displayed in a specific um, specific way. So there are four types. Yeah, four types of display values that you can pass on. So first is block. Display block essentially is the default. That's what we have here. That's what we have here. These elements are in the display block. So if you look into it, they're like blocks stacking against each other. So this is that. So yeah, that's why it's called blocks. And then there's also inline. With inline is essentially it puts two elements at the same line from each other. So let's say for example, this one division here. Inline. Oh, what's this? Wait, one. Let's see here. There we go. So inline will essentially tell the document to be in line with each other. So I set these two to be in line. So now the block property is removed. So they won't be stacking against each other, but rather they will be beside each other. So that's one way that you can what you call it? You can format your text if you want it to be formatted like side by side and you don't want it to be up and down, and you can use this. So there's also display none, which from which turns that specific element to invisible. Like it will be removed. Well, not really removed from the website, but essentially you can't see or access that thing. So let's say, for example, I put this one to none. So notice how it is now gone and the elements shifted. So this again, it removed the display block properties of it, so it won't be able to stack against the other. But we also removed it. It's like, let's say, opacity, I guess, in a way. So now it won't be seen, and notice how the elements shifted. So it acts like it's not there, but in our source code, it is still there. So yeah, you can. This is pretty useful for, let's say, you want a button, and then that button will display specific uh, elements. Then this is used to. So yeah, that's display none. So inline block. I won't go much into detail. I don't think you use this for now, but inline block essentially is it sits in line. So it will sit by side, but it has the property of a block, wherein you can change the width, set its width, height, and then force it into a new line and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think you use this that much for now, so won't really go much into detail about it. But it is available if you ever in the near future you will use it. Position. So position is essentially tells uh, the website of where the specific element should be positioned. So by default, it is position relative. So position relative essentially is it follows the same flow of the documents of the elements rather in your file. So right now, all these are in position relative because they are following the same flow. They are following the exact flow that they need to be. So yeah, and then on the other hand, absolute is different because it takes it out of the normal flow of the relative. So and it aligns itself nearest to the position ancestor. I won't go much into much detail about that, but I can show you. So let's say uh, ID 2, title 2. I want this to have a absolute position. Then, as you can see, it aligns itself to where the nearest is. But uh, I don't really use absolute that much aside from if I have it in a div. So yeah, I don't really recommend you do this with if you don't have a div. But if you have a div and then you want to manipulate that div, then you can set it. You can use this property. Next position is sticky or fixed rather. Sticky is a different one. But fixed position essentially is a specific element is fixed to your screen. So no matter if you scroll up or down, it will always be in that same exact position. Say for example, title 1, I do position fixed. So now whenever even if I scroll down, this element title 1 is still gonna follow. So yeah, this is commonly used for like if you have like mini icons here that you want, like let's say a mini chatbot in your website. Then you can use the fixed value to have a fixed have it like stick to where it is. So yeah. Okay. So Homer, I think it's time to continue.
Hello, hello. So given at least we have an hour or so. We'll fix the current bit. I think padayon na lang to, Dustin. Sa
Okay,
JavaScript.
continue na lang.
Pero I would like to, for a quick vibe check, how, is everything all good, guys? It's been like 2 hours. Just wanted to, can I
Okay.
have a heart rate? Okay.
If you guys think I'm going too fast, just say it.
Yeah, kaya I have a question here kanina. I got DC, but yeah, the difference between padding and margin, Dustin. I think that's something that my past self, my first year me, would have definitely loved to have an
Okay.
explanation on.
So, yeah. So, margin essentially, like I said, creates a space from itself outside. So, it's like pushing someone away, if you know what I mean. So, it's like an element pushing the other element away from itself. So, but it distances itself from where it was previously. Whereas for padding, it pushes something inside so that it will, like, uh, it will create a space between the elements inside, and then from, let's say, for a better visualization, within the border, like so. Okay, I will show you again. Yeah, like
Are you sharing screen, Dustin?
like in my example here.
Okay,
Yeah.
there it is. Okay.
Okay. So, like I mentioned in this drawing, right? It's very bad drawing. So, let's say you have, okay, let's say you have an element here and then an element here. So, if I set a margin here, let's say margin like 10 pixels, then it will push away from itself here, 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 and here. So, it will turn into something like this, which is, it's now farther from the element here because it sets a margin to all four. So it's now farther from here, now farther here, here, and here. So on all fours. So essentially it affects everything that is outside of it. But for padding, let's say here, and then you have an element here. Let's say I set a padding to like 20 pixels or something. Then it will essentially create a space between here. So it will create a space from itself relative to the element inside. So now it will turn something like this. Something like that. Where it's farther, it has 20 pixels of space here, 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 and then here. So yeah, essentially, if we're talking about creating a space outside of it, then use margin. But if we're talking about creating a space within that element, then we are talking about padding. That clear?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But there are images out there, guys, as to, but I
Yeah.
think Dustin's explanation really elaborates upon what those images mean. Just such a padding versus margin, it will kind of make sense, but the more you use it, the more it will make sense.
Yeah.
So I think we can proceed na lang with JavaScript.
JavaScript.
I know this is a lot to take in. It's not JavaScript. Flexbox rather.
Flexbox. Okay.
Yeah,
So
quick lang na, guys.
Flexbox is another way to format your what do you call it? To format your elements. So it was gone. This was, what do you call it? Recommended by Homer and I think Gian as well, that to discuss or to like at least introduce you, because this is very useful, especially in your future subjects. So display flex So essentially what Flexbox is it turns your container or your container, for better word, into a uh, flexible area for the elements inside. So this is very useful if you want to have like a very responsive web page, and which is, like I mentioned, one of the goals of the developer, usability. So it has to be accessible to all devices. So Flexbox is also one of them. It's one of the tools that you use to do this. So in order to enable a Flexbox, you just have to call display flex. So commonly a Flexbox is used within a div. So let's say I have a div here. Yeah. So it's commonly used within a div. So display flex. So as you can see here, the like the what do you call it? Display block again is now gone and is now changed into flex. So now everything inside this red box is now flexible. So yeah, and then we have a lot of properties for Flexbox. So I'll go over them. I'll go over some of the ones that I think are useful. Align items. So align items essentially tells you tells the tells the Flexbox of where to align the elements vertically. So if it wants to align itself up, down, or centered. So see. So in order to do this, you must do the display flex first, then align items. So let's say center, right? So now, as you can see here, the elements are now centered with each other. So vertically, yeah, it is now aligned at the center. So that's one way where you can manipulate the text and stuff like that. There are more, but I think center is the one mostly used that you can use mostly commonly. Um, justify content. Justify content uh, essentially is like align items, but horizontally. So instead of defining the spacing in horizontally, it defines the spacing. Vertically, it defines the spacing of your elements horizontally. Let's say, for example, I do justify content and I do center. So now, as you can see here, the elements are centered within the div. So and then see we also have space between. So now it it is it adjusts itself, and then space space evenly, then it has a even spacing from each other. Our question. Yes, Amir.
The screen is frozen, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oops.
I thought it was lagging.
There we go.
Yeah.
How about that?
No, it's try unpresenting.
Yeah, okay. My bad. My bad, guys. I was yapping.
And it's
There you
Google
go.
Meet Go.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did it freeze? I can go back.
I think to
Okay.
justify content.
Oh, okay. But yeah, justify content.
Align
Uh,
items there. Yeah,
align
just
items.
comment. Yeah, just comment the first. No, just comment that out. Just
Oh
comment
yeah.
justify content.
Okay. But yeah, essentially, align items like allows you to change the orientation of how your elements will be displayed vertically. So most commonly when I use is center. So now it is, as you can see, it is now centered in the div itself. kind of forgot the other align items are, but yeah, the one I think most of you will commonly use is center method. So now going back, justify content uh, allows you to create a allows you to format your, let's say, elements within the horizontally in a better way. Like, let's say, yeah, this one, space evenly. So like instead of adjusting the contents of each what you call it, instead of adjusting the uh I don't know, the margin of each element inside a div, you can just call space evenly, and it will evenly out evenly space out the elements where depending on how many there are, and how and the width of your div is. There's also there's a lot of uh, arguments in justify content. Like, let's say center, then it allows it to be centered. So both of these elements are now in the middle of the div. Okay. Then say space between, then it adds a space in between each other. So it's like, yeah, like this. Space around, just like this. Yeah. Uh, I'll leave it up to you guys to play around Flexbox and justify content. I'll send some resources later on what you can use to practice these, because there are a lot. This. Okay. Flex direction. So flex direction tells your elements within the div, the flex box, of how the, let's say, the element should be oriented. They should be oriented a row, vertically, column, or column reverse. Here, these are the four what you call it, for arguments or values. So row, it's pretty self-explanatory. It allows you to align your items in a row, so horizontally. Column allows you to align your items vertically. Row reverse essentially just reverses them. And then same with column reverse. So let's see. Oh, wait. Flex direction, row. But it was already in row beforehand anyway, so yeah. Then let's say row reverse. Then if you notice here, instead of the title being on the left and the paragraph on the right, it's now a paragraph on the right and then title on the left. So that's essentially just the reverse of our row. If we do column, so now here, title and then paragraph here. So now it is now in a column. But now if we do reverse, so it's the opposite way around. So I think you get the idea, stuff like that. Flex wrap essentially turns it, if like it adjusts itself depending on the width of the thing. So let's say for example, I put here flex wrap, then wrap. So if I adjust the orientation of my thing, how do I do that? I don't know how to on this properly. But yeah, essentially, if it's too small, then it will adjust itself to be in a column. For example, TPX. Then as you can see, it adjusted itself to be in a, what you call it, in a column form instead uh, of a row form. No wrap essentially will remove that. So it is still the same, but yeah. So wrap is used if you want your website to be responsive. So quick reminder: do not forget your semicolons and curly braces. If you notice, each after each property there is a semicolon, and then your curly braces. Okay. So should we move on to JavaScript, Homer?
Given the time, I think you can go over through the what you think is the essential. Okay, I know this is a lot to take in, guys. Just a heads up, this might be a lot to take in. It is a crash course, so just a reminder that as you may observe that Dustin keeps saying that feel free to explore on your own, and that is something that is essential once web development in general. You don't really memorize things; you just have to know that they exist. And what we're essentially doing here, guys, is that we're telling you the tools, we're telling you how, we're informing you rather what is most essential, especially in projects that you'll be doing in, let's say, ITC or Web Dev 1. These are the essentials, but the specifics of those essentials, it's up to you. But with regards to JavaScript, no, I believe sa ITC in our project, we weren't required to do JavaScript. So just a heads up, it's okay if you guys can take this all in, especially this section. Okay. Yeah, just a heads up, Dustin, you don't have to elaborate on each specific
Okay.
JavaScript component. Okay. I
Okay.
am sending a Flexbox game. Just I don't know. I feel like if you want, I think Flexbox for me is far more important than JavaScript. I don't know. I'm just saying. But yeah, JavaScript. Hopefully, you
I
guys
also
can.
send.
I don't know.
I'm
You
also
guys,
sending this document, this website. It's a really good content visualization of Xbox. Anyways, moving on to JavaScript. Essentially, is the brain of front-end development. So it allows you to do things that, yeah, it allows you to do things. It can do calculations within your website without the need of backend for now. So yeah, what is JS? It is a weakly type programming language that is used in web development to make websites interactive and dynamic. So what do I mean by weakly type? So I guess we all have C, right? So in C, diba, whenever we initiate a variable or declare a variable, we have to type its variable type and then um, the variable name. In JavaScript, we don't need to do that because uh, any variable can be whatever. So let's say we have number. A number can be, let's say, variable name number. And a number can be like anything. Well, while it is the same with C, uh, in JavaScript, it's not so obvious because we we don't uh, declare declare the data type. But yeah, that's how weekly type programming means. But so how do you use use JavaScript in your websites? So there are two ways. The same with the same with CSS. There's both internal and external. So for internal, you use the script tag again. So if we go here, usually it's right after body that you do it. Oh, before body rather. So here, script, then there. So now this entire area here, you can essentially do a JavaScript code here. So, but another way to do it again is the external way, where it is much better because it allows you to essentially, like I said, modularize your files, have cleaner